and I'm going to be your educator today. This is where we rescue, rehabilitate, and release sea turtles back to the wild. I'm going to tell you about the species of turtles we have here, the things we do, and what you can do to help them. Before me here, I have a green turtle. Green turtles tend to get to be 500 pounds, 3.5, 4 feet long, but they're not actually green on the outside. Due to their diet of seagrass and algae, it gives them a very green fatty tissue on the inside. I'm sure some of you kids read the book Green Eggs and Ham, right? What
Yeah.
color is the ham? Green. Turtle meat is actually green. Now, sailors that would travel in the ocean used to round up these green sea turtles and throw them on board their ships on their backs. When a sea turtle is upside down, it cannot right itself. It's called a stay put position, and they can stay out of the water for a long period of time. They used to provide those sailors a fresh meat. Here in the Keys, we have what's called a turtle cannery. They used to can the meat for stews and soups. But in 1973, they passed the Endangered Species Act. You can no longer harvest the sea turtles for their meat, shell, eggs, or leather. Other countries eat their eggs, just like we eat chicken eggs here in the States. Now, this turtle is Raphael. Over here, I have Donatello, and then we have Leonardo. But Michelangelo went back to the wild Saturday, so one of the Ninja Turtles already released back to the wild. But these turtles are little turtles. They're what we call juveniles. So the way you tell a turtle's age, it goes by the size of their shell and how much they weigh. They get put in a category of a hatchling, post-hatchling, juvenile, subadult, or adult turtle. And these turtles come to us. We get a lot of green juveniles. And the reason is they're so little. They're somewhere between a toddler and a teenager. They don't have an immune system built up yet. So when they start feeding on toxic grass beds and swimming in toxic water, pesticides, fertilizers, oil spills, plastics, it breaks down their immune system and they break out into something called a herpes like virus. It's called a fibropapilloma tumor. And I'm going to show you what it looks like. It grows in a cauliflower shape around their eyes. They can't see, mouths they can't eat, and flippers they can't swim. So I'm going to show you what Raphael looked like. See the tumors around his eyes, around his flippers there? You had them on them. And we had to do surgeries. Sometimes they'll go through multiple surgeries to remove the tumors. And then they'll remain with us 6 months to a year, tumor free, in order to go back to the wild. Now, Donatello's kind of doing something funny. It looks like he's playing there in the water. And what it is, I mean, not Donatello, Raphael, sorry. What it is the top of their shell is called a carapace. The underneath side is called plastron. And each one of the individual sections are called scutes. And it's made of the same stuff your fingernail is, which is keratin. When these turtles are going through a growth spurt, their scutes kind of get outlined white and blotchy. And out in the wild, you see fish picking at their shell. Fish are looking for a free meal of worms, leeches, and leech eggs that want to get in and around those scutes. It'd be like you and I getting something underneath your fingernail. That would drive you crazy. And it drives them crazy too. So often scratch their shells on corals and rocks, just like we use a nail file. We don't have corals and rocks in here, so we built them these PVC enrichment toys, and they also like to use a waterfall to go across those scutes to kind of wash them out, just like you wash out underneath your fingernails if they got dirt in them. So that's what he's doing right now. He's just playing in the water, getting a little itch on and scratching it. These turtles were also rescued by veterans, and happy Veterans Day, by Force Blue. Every year we partner with the veterans and we get some boats and we go out into the bay side here and we do a turtle roundup. We gather a bunch of turtles because we want to find out what the overall health of the turtle is of the population out in the wild. And they do, DNA, they get blood samples, tissue samples, measurements, weight, the whole 9 yards. And then they'll be returned back to the ocean. But 4 of them had a heavy load of tumors on them. So those 4 out of 30 something they brought to us. And so they've been going through tumor removal. I'll show you what Leonardo here looked like too. You can see he had some big nasty tumors in the back there and some nasty tumors around his face as well, and flippers. And then over here, I have Sky. Let me turn the water off so you can see a little better. And you can see she still has those tumors. We got to make her healthy enough to have surgeries. A lot of times when you look at that picture too, you only see the front or the top. You don't always get to see all the tumors underneath it. So you'll notice she has a heavy load of those tumors. And when their eyes are covered with the tumors, it kind of makes like a very sad or depressed turtle. They don't want to swim because they can't see where they're going. They don't want to eat. They have a very good sense of smell. They don't feel like eating. Just by removing the tumors from their eyes will often perk up their personality. They'll start swimming and eating the next day. Or our turtles actually go see a veterinarian ophthalmologist. They go to the eye doctor. She'll remove the tumors from their eyes. She'll put them on cancer eye drops. So twice a day, they'll get taken out of the tank for eye drops. And twice a month, we'll pile up to 7 turtles in the ambulance. And they all get to go on a field trip to Miami to the eye doctor. But they have to have one fully good working eye in order to return back to the ocean. You'll also see, look, he's scratching his shell too. That's why it's kind of funny. You don't get to see this every day, but you can see the top part of his scoop where it's peeled off there. And so, he's going through that growth spurt. He's trying to get the rest of it off. Sometimes that water feeling is like a massage over the shell too. We're going to go see some more turtles because we do have a lot of them here. Currently at the hospital, we have 42 turtles, not including the babies. And we have 4 of the 5 species to go over with you. But these tanks are kind of like their own personal hospital bed, going through different stages of care. And then they'll go down to the main pool. Spook was our most recent rescue here. And Spook just came in on November 2nd and also had tumors. But this was a very lucky turtle. When it came in, it had very good blood chemistry, very good body weight. We're actually able to start surgeries right away. That's kind of going to reduce Spook's recovery time here. And Not as well. She came in, but she also was entangled in a fishing line, and she ate that fishing line. And it got balled up in her intestines, and they had to go inside of her and pull out her intestines and get the fishing line out. You'll notice she's in a very shallow amount of water. We just want her to get the rest that she needs, so all she has to do is lift her head up for a breath of air. She doesn't really have to exert herself to come to the surface because she's just not feeling well. But you also notice some of them have their names on their shells, but not all of them. Well, we don't have a CAT scan machine here at our hospital, so they get to go on another field trip to the people hospital. And that's where they get their CAT scans done. But the nurses there, with COVID right now, can't ask the patient, well, hey, dude, what's your name? So we write the names on the shelves for nurses there as they pop into the CAT scan machines for us. Got Lime. And over here, I got my sweet Pistachio. She's going through a growth spurt. You see how her scoots are all outlined white. She still has some tumors that she has to have removed yet, but she's looking quite well. Now, we're kind of lucky because our hospital is actually built on an old motel. We drive golf carts to transport the turtles. But on the left side there is where our rehab staff live, like your nurses. They actually live here. And then on the right, we have some rooms still set up when a motel room still set up as motel rooms. So when a veterinarian from out of state or out of country wants to come, professors or students from a university want to do research, they have some rooms to stay in. And we're actually right on the water. We do not have to make the salt water. We get to pump it in. And it'll go into filtration systems, and it'll help keep the water very clean for some of them. Right now, let's see who they've given a bath to. It's bath time, or what they call sometimes spa day at the turtle hospital here. We'll go see who they're checking on, giving some medicine to. This looks like Cruck or Smalls. Cruck. Cruck just had a little bit of a scrub down. The algae grows on him very quickly. But this is a bigger green turtle. And a lot of times what happens is when they get hit by boats or jet skis, the spine is connected to the shell and they become paralyzed and they can't always move their back flippers. Other times too, what happens is the air gets trapped inside their shell. It could be a million little bubbles, one big bubble caught in fatty tissue layers. And so they become paralyzed and they can't get down for their food. Remember, they eat seagrass and algae. And so they would starve to death and they'd always be floating at the surface. So they become what we call permanent residents. And so they become permanent residents. And what happens is, I'm sorry, I had to move the gate for a second and caught on it. And so they can't go back to the wild, but they can go to a new zoo or aquarium. And they just can't be returned back to the wild. But what we do from here is we attach lead weights to their shell. We'll put these round discs of lead on their shell, and it's encased in marine epoxy so that the lead's not touching their shell and it's not exposed in the water for the longer period of time. But there's no real mathematical equation for lead weights. It's trial and error. We'll attach the Velcro strips to their shell, put lead weights on Velcro. Once we find out how much lead weight, then they'll be applied with a marine epoxy. But we have a lot of these turtles that can't go back to the wild, but they also help save the other turtles. They're our blood donors, but it has to be species to species They don't actually have AB blood types like we do. I'll tell you about these few in here. I got Chance sticking his head up right now. We have a hard time getting lead weights to stick to Chance's shell. It's so smooth. But the one in the back corner there, get ready to pop her head up. They just had a bath. That is, nope, where'd she go? Right here. Hanson Bowie. We're excited to have her with us. So when we release our turtles back to the wild, they get a bit of jewelry. They get what's called a flipper tag. Little metal tag goes in the armpit area of the turtle. It has letters and numbers on one side. The other side says reward to the biology department of. And those little flipper tags are known worldwide. But here they also get something called a pit tag. That's a little microchip you put in your pets now, your cats and dogs. So if they're ever found again, we can run that chip and find out why they were there. But Hanson Bowie, when she came in 4 years ago, she had a flipper tag. And we ran that tag and got the information back. We were shocked because she was here. This is her second visit. She was here in 1994. She was here from 1994 to 1997. She was under a fibropapilloma tumor study and released in November of 97, only weighing 35 pounds. She doesn't look like she weighs 35 pounds anymore, does she? She has put on over 300 pounds since she left here. Currently, Tom just said she's weighing in now at 345 pounds. So she's put on 310 pounds since she left here. She is a big girl. But the reason we're excited to have her with us, in the 35-year history of the hospital, we've only had 3 turtles ever return for a second visit. The other 2 are loggerheads, though. She is the first green. After we remove the tumors, keep them here roughly a full year, and send them back out to the wild, we never actually knew if they grew the tumors again or not till now. She doesn't have tumors. Usually as an adult, though, they don't. They built up that immune system. But you can see by her shell where something hit it. So now, unfortunately for her, she has the bubble butt syndrome. I want to point out this white one over there. That is the most critically endangered of all the 7 species of sea turtles in the world. That is a Kemp's Ridley. See if she'll come over this way. Kemp's Ridleys tend to get to be about 100 pounds and 2 feet long. They like to eat crustaceans like crabs and shrimp and snails and things like that. But they're also known as a ghost turtle because of their coloring. They range from a yellowish to a grayish in color, and that helps them hide in the sandy bottoms of the Gulf of Mexico. But what makes the Kemp's Ridleys unique is the way they nest. All the other turtles usually come out at nighttime to nest. If you think about it, at nighttime, that sand is much, much cooler. There's less predators and less people on the beach. But not the Kemp's Ridleys. They all come out at one mass time during the day. It's called an arribada, and it means arrival in Spanish. Bender's actually been with us since 2005. She is missing her front left flipper due to entanglement. One of the biggest questions everybody likes to ask us is, if a turtle is missing a flipper, do they swim in circles? They only do that if they're in a round tank. They have no problem swimming. They use their front flippers to propel forward, and they use their back flippers to steer with. They do learn to compensate over time. And if it's an adult female and they need to nest on a beach, they can still do that. They actually go through the whole motions of having an invisible flipper, but they get up there and they get it done. But you're lucky to see her because she does play that ghost act very well, because she can actually stay underwater for 5 hours at a time. So she only comes up on her time, not ours, unfortunately. But she does have what's called the bubble butt syndrome. We actually have the original bubble butt here, and that's what they called it when the air gets trapped inside their shell. But over the last couple of years, they've been changing it and getting more politically correct, and they've changed it to the positive buoyancy disorder. I still like bubble butt better, though. All right, so I see you making your way. He disappeared. There's a lot of turtles in this pool. This is actually the original swimming pool, and it was built with the motel back in the 50s. Didn't have a lot of freshwater pools. Freshwater had to be pumped in. It's pretty expensive when you're on an island. So when the founder already purchased the property in the 80s, he did some upgrades. He put in a chlorine pool for his guests. He turned this into what he called an environmental learning center. He would stock it with all different kinds of tropical fish you find here in the Keys, that his guests stay at the hotel could come and snorkel with the fish. Well, leave it to the kids in a very popular show at that time. Those kids would ask Mr. Moretti, "Hey, dude, where's all the turtles?" Because back in the 80s is when the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were born. So he thought, well, how cool would that be to have a turtle here? But he found out you can't. Well, at least you can't have a healthy one because they're an endangered species. But he also found out there was a great need to help the sick and injured turtles of the Keys. By obtaining a permit through FWC and having a local vet nearby, he was able to turn this into a rehabilitation center, and from there it turned to a full-blown hospital. We are the first hospital. We are the largest hospital. The fish he put in here throughout the years have died off. The fish in here now, there are tubes. It's connected to the ocean. The water rises and falls with the tide, and the fish come in when they're itty bitty, and there's no real predators for the fish. So fish have a bunch of baby fish, and then we got to fish the fish out and throw them back in the ocean. There's barracudas in here. There's mangrove snappers in here. There's all kinds of stuff in here. Over here, I got Montel and Kent. Kent there, the back one. I call her my drama queen. Kent is a girl. And I was trying to get her to come over. Let's see if I can get her. So I can show you how she eats. It's kind of hysterical. Come on, Kent. Got a handful of food. Now, the way you can tell a male from a female by looking at them is once they're over the age of 25. Adult males have really thick, fat tails that go past their shell or carapace. Females have these itty-bitty little tails. We do know most of our green juveniles are. When they come to us with the tumors on them, we have to do what's called an endoscope. We have to go inside of them and make sure that there are no internal tumors. We're in there, we usually find out what their gender is as well. But we will not do an invasive scope just to find out the gender of a sea turtle. She decided to go away. I call her my drama queen because remember, green turtles like to eat a lot of green stuff, right? Well, because of her, we're not allowed to wear green clothing in the pool of the tanks. You look like a tasty snack, and a lot of times she'll bite you. Plus, she likes to squirt water out her nose like a fire hose. They actually all squirt water out their noses. She just does it very dramatically because she can. And I just got to close the food back up. One quick second. I was hoping she would come over so you could see how she eats. We're going to move on to some babies and some other turtles along the way here. That's Kruk that just had a bath back in the main pool again. Sequoia, she does swim in circles. The only turtle that swims in circles here. And that's because she's missing her left eye due to the tumor. So she only uses her right eye to find the food. And I got Pumpkin here, who's had tumor removal. They're currently got a couple turtles out, probably getting their eye drops right now. Frankie down here is my Beast of Beauty story. I want to show you what he looked like. He was the best. Over 10% of his weight was in tumors when he came in. He had a huge one on his chin that was almost the size of his face. So they'll come to us looking like this, and this is how you can tell a sick turtle. Because turtles are air breathers, so they have to come to the surface, right? And when they're floating at the surface, photosynthesis sets in. All this algae will start growing on their shell. It's like building a forest. And then they'll develop a whole habitat on their shell. They'll have worms and leeches and leech eggs and snails, crabs, corals, and barnacles all on their shell. And so that's what Frankie looks like now. There's my Beast of Beauty story for you right there. Don't he look good? He's had quite a few tumors removed. He's healing nicely. And then next to him is little Henry, too. He's also had tumor removal. So they're waiting to get wound care. Now, you and I get a cut. You tend to wash it with soap and water. You put antibiotic ointment on it, and you'll cover the Band-Aid, right? You'll never guess what we use for antibiotic or antiseptic here. It's something that bees make that you eat. Can you guess what that is?
Honey. Honey.
We have some lovely beekeepers that keep us stocked with honey. So we got honey here. And they'll put honey on their wounds. And then we'll use raw honey and honeycomb if we need to. But as far as a Band-Aid, there's a couple different things we use. Denture adhesive, something called marine epoxy. But hooves glue is kind of one of the neater ones. It's a horseshoe glue. It's not made of horses, though. And that's because horses' hooves are made of keratin. Same stuff your fingernail is, same stuff their shell is, and it dries very quickly. And the last thing we use is something you find in a nail salon, which is acrylic. And so we'll use that on their shells too. Up here's a different species, and it's kind of hard to tell though. This is a little hawksbill. He finally passed his swim test. He's not in a basket anymore. Hawksbills tend to get to be about 100 pounds and 2 feet long. They like to eat sponges and corals. But inside certain sponges and corals, there's a glass-like shard material. It'd be like eating a mouthful of broken glass. But it's also what gives them a beautiful shell. Unfortunately for these little guys, they are hunted for that shell. Their shells are highly prized. It was made into something called tortoise rim glasses and jewelry and all kinds of things. Guitar picks were made out of their shell. Their shell is a little different from the other turtle shell, though. The other turtle shells all fit together like a puzzle piece. The hawksbill shells actually overlap like shingles on a roof. But he's just a cute guy. Over here, I have some little bigger ones. I have one in timeout. He's not playing nice with the other turtles, so he's in timeout. Then I this one Camps Ridley. It doesn't really look like the ghost turtle when they're little, are they? But this one actually has a name as well. This one is Raven. Normally, we don't give these little guys names because they get to go back to the wild pretty soon. But the problem we had, she had to have a medical record. If you notice, she's got a little chunk out of her front flipper there on the right, and there's a triangle on the left flipper. Good possibility that a bird dropped her, because only 1 in 1,000 of these will make it to adulthood, from these hatchlings, which is they're just dinner on the dinner plate for something else. Birds, crabs, bayfish, sharks, raccoons, you name it, everything wants to eat them. 2 of these loggerheads here, don't know which 2 yet. They're going to be our little ambassadors here at the hospital. They'll be with us for about 2 years. So we release them back to the wild. They'll be about 2 feet long. The only predator that size they're going to worry about are sharks. In the meantime, we did a Facebook name game to name them, and the public chose Mac and Cheese. So that's their name. And they're going to go on field trips. They'll go to schools and summer camps, outreach programs, library festivals. And usually every year, one of them goes to church. They didn't go too far last year because of COVID, though. But they get washed in by storms. That's why they come to us during the summer. Doesn't always have to be a hurricane. We'll have gale force winds. It pushes all that little sargassum into the beaches, docks, and marinas, and they get washed in with it, and they just need a boat captain to give them a ride out back. They also get dropped by birds, like I said, or other predators. And then May 1st, October 31st, it's lights out on the beach. Turtles dig in the dark. And so if they see artificial light, they go toward the light. They end up at swimming pools, parking lots. So you might see red lights up and down our beaches. That is the color they filter out. And these guys are actually one of them's going on a field trip this weekend. But you notice how they put their little flippers on the back of their shell? That's a defense mechanism. And what it is they look like a leaf from a bird over top. The other camera. Predators need them kind of blend in with the sky and the clouds. They also have a little ridge on their back. Only the loggerheads and Kemp's Ridleys have this. It just makes them look tougher to a predator, kind of beefs them up. But here, and the biggest hurdle the babies have, though, the first years of life, they live at Sargasso seaweed patches. Those, unfortunately, are now trash dumps. Everything of trash floating in the ocean has to stop when it hits something. It's a Sargasso, breaks down into a smaller piece of trash, and these little guys will eat anything. They're like toddlers. If they can fit it in their mouth, they'll try it. And so they eat a bunch of plastic that look like snails and jellyfish and bivalves. And they eat all this trash, and they don't make it because of all that lovely trash that they eat. And the funny thing is, too, the people who rescue them are the ones who usually name them. We keep these closed because if a bird comes in, they're still lunch size. I got Emerald there. I don't know where Rebel took off to again. But in this quadrant, where is she at? In the corner there probably is Little Fat Brianna. We did not name her that. The people that rescued her named her that. She doesn't like anybody. We've tried. And what it is with her, she was supposed to go to an aquarium over in London, really far away. But unfortunately, COVID came and she can't fly internationally, so she's still with us. But loggerheads tend to be territorial and aggressive. You cannot put 2 loggerheads together. I can have one loggerhead Rebel. He's over there with all the rest of the turtles. You just can't put them together except for her. She doesn't like anybody. She doesn't play well with the other turtles. Frankie, he's twisted himself all around, facing the other way now. And so has Henry B there. I do have more Beast to Beauty stories here. I have Queso. And looks like he might have attacked him when he was little too. If you look at Queso's back flipper, it's kind of squared off a little. Heather, I love her. She was attacked by a shark. You say, well, how do you know that? She's got 1, 2. There are 2 flippers in the back there. She has a head and her tail's underneath her. They say, well, how do you know she was attacked by a shark? Well, when you look at her picture when she came in, I can't get to it right now, but it's kind of hard. And if you look at the shell here, see those scratch marks? Those are due to the shark's teeth. Sea turtles can do burst speeds of 35 miles an hour. They will twist, turn, and maneuver their bodies, and they'll actually put that shell right up to the shark's mouth, using it like a teenage mutant ninja turtle shield. They can't get a bite of it. So she's lucky. She got away, though. She just has those scratches. And because her shell's like your fingernail, depending how deep they are, they'll grow out sometimes. But she's had tumor removal, and she's looking fantastic. But she's lucky because she still has 4 flippers, a head, and a tail. So she'll go back to the wild. Over here, I got Bruiser. He had tumor removal as well. And I got Lenny here. Lenny was also attacked by a shark. Sharks don't always eat the whole turtle. They'll just take a snack. Flipper here, flipper there, save the turtle for another day. Let me see if I can show you his picture there. Kind of. And actually, there was a bone sticking out in that picture on the right side. He had to have that bone amputated because you couldn't just have a bone sticking out of him. So, but he's lucky he's alive and he can go back to the wild. He's also going through a growth spurt. So if you kind of look at his shell there, you can see where it's peeling, where it's outlined, and all those fresh scoots are getting ready to grow. They grow pretty fast when they're little. And their head is kind of neat too, because like we all have our fingerprints, they're all the same, but yet they're different swirls, which makes them individual. It's kind of the same way with their heads too. They all have the same kind of pattern on their shell, but it's just a little bit different for each one. And over here, Barney. Barney's going to get a bath. And you look at his back shell too. Sometimes they got to take the tumors off though. But sometimes it's just birds that picked at him. Because if you think about it, like he's got a little notch back here. That could have been a bird or a crab right there that tried to bite him in the back. Because they just pick at him. Pick at him. And over here I have Friend. She's one of my favorites. She likes to see that. She'll come up and see the camera. But Friend did not have tumors. Friend was transferred to us from another facility. We don't actually have a mass capacity of turtles we can take. We just break down tanks into smaller tanks, portable tanks, kiddie pools, research trailer tanks. We have this huge pool. But Friend came to us in the wintertime. Sometimes these turtles become what we call cold stunned. They don't quite migrate south in time for the winter. And they get very lethargic and weak. And they just float at the surface. And they get pneumonia. Their lungs are compromised. Then they have to have something called nebulizer treatments. And we'll put them in a box and it blows in a mist of medication. Or sometimes they'll get like this little cone on their head and it blows in a mist of air. And it's really funny to watch them because the problem you have with turtles, though, they can hold their breath for a long period of time. So you kind of got to pat them on the back, go, come on, take that deep breath of medication, get it in your lungs for me. But she also had a shell infection. You know how long it takes for your fingernails to grow? It was just taking us a long time for her shell to get that infection cleared up. But she's doing very well, and hopefully we'll get her to go back to the wild soon. Now, the one turtle I didn't talk about here was a leatherback. We don't get very many of them here. Leatherbacks get to be 2,000 pounds, 6 feet long, and they like deep water, and they eat almost their body weight a day in jellyfish. That's a lot of jellyfish. But we don't have a lot of them because we don't have deep water down here. And they're found all over the world. The leatherbacks can actually handle the cold water temperatures. Looks like RT is getting a bath right now. I want to change his name. I want to call him Pac-Man. It's so funny to watch RT eat. He goes after them little balls of chow. Looks just like Pac-Man. All right, I'm getting ready to unplug so I can start taking questions if you want.